Welcome to the morebusiness.com podcast. I'm your host, Raj Kara, executive leadership coach that helps other companies grow their business. I'm really excited today to be joined by Luis Scott. He is the CEO of let me get this right, eight-figure firm consulting, and he's based in Atlanta, and he has grown his law firm to 200 people. He actually helps other people grow their firms as well. And the really cool thing is the strategies that we're going to discuss today can apply to more than just law firms. Luis, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, one of the things when you and I did our pre-call check-in was you have a strategy called the 999 strategy, the 999 plan. Could you talk about what that means?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I wrote an ebook called "The 9 Principles of Exponential Growth," and it was kind of like an outline of how to grow your business, and it was 60 pages. And I realized that the 9 principles needed to be fleshed out a little bit more, and there was actually a little bit more that needed to go into it. So then I wrote a book called "The King of Growth," and it was basically how to dominate your marketing and create predictability and financial freedom, personally and professionally. And so that explained a little bit more on the marketing side. And then I realized that there was an operations side that needed to be explained. And so the culmination of the 9 principles, the 9 marketing pillars, and then what I call the 9 essentials turned into the 999 plan. And I'm actually in the process of rewriting that and calling it something cooler. So, but in the meantime, it's the 999 plan.
Okay, well, we're going to get into that in just a second. Let's go into your background a bit. So you're an attorney by training,
Yep.
and you started a law firm. And I like the way on your website you put it, you help companies go from being a firm to a business. Tell me what you mean by that. What's the difference? Like, what was your firm, and then how did you grow it into a business?
So my original background is I was in a partnership prior to the partnership that I'm in right now. And that partnership ran like a law firm. And the partnership I'm in today runs like a law business. And the difference is that a law firm is very ownership driven. Like it's the lawyer who drives it. The lawyer wants to be a lawyer. They generally run it like a mom and pop. Maybe they get to $3 to $5 million. There's no true leadership. What I find when we work with firms is that there's not really a lot of leadership. It's just the owner. They make all the decisions. They have to do all of the work. They're probably still grinding, 60, 70 hours a week. A law business runs on systems, and that's the biggest difference.
Systems. I think, that's really the key word is once you start building processes into your company, then you really start to see, that's when you start to see the growth happen.
Yes.
So how did you get your firm to go from the law practice that it was with maybe a few other attorneys to then scale to 200 employees? That's pretty big.
Well, so, just to the law firm that I have right now, I didn't start the firm. I was actually, I joined with my business partner. So
Okay.
I left my old practice and I started my own firm, the Scott Law Firm, and it was just me. And then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, let's work together," which is my business partner. When we joined together, we had about 23 employees. And what we did was we took his law firm and turned it into a law business. So that's the genesis of where I came up with this concept. Was like, I was in a law firm, then I started a law firm, then I joined a law firm, and I was like, wait a second, there's got to be a better way. And the better way is to develop a system-driven business. So when we went in and we started implementing these principles, which at the time we didn't know they were principles or essentials or pillars. This is something I was like gathering because I'm a writer just by nature. So I was writing everything. I was kind of documenting things. I actually still have my very first business plan I ever wrote for the law firm. And so like I was writing all these things and I was like, wait a second, there's some commonalities in successful businesses. And when we started implementing those commonalities, we took principles from other business types and we started implementing that. The firm exploded in our first year together. So think about this. The firm had existed 10 years, had 23 employees. And in our first year together, we hired 84 employees. We never went back after that. That was
Wow.
Never went back. And it just kept growing and growing. And now we're starting our 6th year here in January. 6 years later, we're one of the fastest growing firms in the country. But better than that, we're doing it efficiently. We're doing it with leadership, and we're doing it really without my involvement, which is great.
That's now you have a business. I jokingly say, I've heard this before. You have a business when you can go on vacation, come back, and you still have a business. So that's really
Absolutely.
that's wonderful. So now to go from 23 to adding 84 in 1 year, what did you do?
So the first thing is identifying how fast you're going to grow. And one of the things that a lot of people do is they underestimate their speed of growth, or they overestimate their ambition, right? So and their ability to work. So if you overestimate your ambition and ability to work, you're probably going to think you're going to grow faster than you really are. And if you underestimate the amount of people you need, or the underestimate the amount of work that you need, you're not going to hire fast enough. So the first thing I did was I sat down. I asked myself, how many people do I think I need? It's what we call a hiring plan in the 8-figure firm consulting model. We call it the current state of your employment and the future need of your employment. We identified how many people we needed based upon our current trajectory of growth and what we thought we wanted to grow. And then once I identified the current employment and the future need of employment, then I started mapping it out. How many do we need in January? How many do we need in February? How many do we need in March? And then you work it backwards. So if I need 3 people in January, how many interviews do I need? Well, I need 10. If I need 10 interviews, how many candidates do I need? I need 20. If I need 20 candidates, how many do I have to source? I need 50. So that's how we would work it backwards. So it's sourced to actual candidates, to interviews, to people that you hire. And so it's an entire planned system. And if you're going to hire 80 people in a year or 100 people, you really need to have a plan for sure.
So that's the recruiting side of it. What about the business development side? I think where a lot of people are going to be interested is, okay, you had to hire people, 3 people in a particular month. That's great. How did you know that you're going to have that much business, or how did you plan to get that much extra business?
So the plan of getting business, and I say something that's very controversial on stage, and I say it on podcasts, and I'm going to keep saying it because nobody can actually refute it, and that is getting business is the easiest part of business. And the reason is because there's so much need in the legal industry, in any industry. Now, if you have a product that is worthless, meaning nobody really wants it, then that's an issue. But if you have a product that you know, because you've done your market research, that people want and need and are willing to pay for it, getting business is really easy because we already know the demand's there. The question is, how do you get in front of people so that they actually hire you? And that's the part where people believe that it's tricky, but getting business is easy once you figure out how to get in front of them. So how do you generate business? How do you actually get in front of the people that want to buy your product? Number one is understanding who your consumer is. What is your audience member? Who are they? Are they men, women, black, white? Are they big, small? Are that relates to fitness, right? Are they big? Are they small? You're not going to go out and market for people who run triathlons and think that you're going to find it easy to become their health coach, right? Because they probably don't need a health coach. They run triathlons. So, what is their income level? Where do they live geographically? What are the needs that they have? And so that's step one, is figuring out who your client avatar is. And step two is asking the question, where can I find them? And that's a part that nobody ever goes through that process. Like, where can you find your client? Well, are they online? Right? If you're advertising right now, we have law firms that do elder law. People who are 65 years old are not on Facebook nonstop. There's some that are on there, but they're not like exclusively on Facebook. They're not on Snapchat for sure. They're not on TikTok. Right? They're not on YouTube Shorts. So you need to ask yourself, where can you find this client that you've now identified? Where do they live? Where do they eat? Where do they breathe? What activities do they do? Then you need to start marketing in those areas. So if you find out that your target audience is, let's say, on Instagram, you need to put a heavy dose of marketing on Instagram. So number one is knowing who your customer is. Number two is asking where they are, and then number three is putting together a plan that surrounds them, that engulfs them, so that no matter where they go, you're there. And that's how you get business.
And by that, you mean using cookies to track and then advertising so that you follow them on the web, or did you mean something else?
I think it's a little bit of everything. It depends on what type of marketing you're doing. But for us, this is a real life example. We were targeting the Hispanic market when in the early ages of our law firm, only because you have to target something, and we weren't excluding anybody else. I mean, it didn't matter where you were, what your background was. If you called us, we were going to work with you. But we wanted our marketing dollars to stretch, and so we wanted to go after the Hispanic market. Well, we learned that Hispanics listened. As a Hispanic, I listened to a lot of Spanish radio. We learned that they listened to certain radio stations. We learned that they watched certain TV stations. We learned that they were located in certain areas of Atlanta. We learned that they read certain newspapers. We learned that they looked at certain magazines. We learned that they were on certain platforms. So we went and we said, we're going to market on these platforms, in these magazines, on these billboards, on this radio, on this TV. And that worked. And so the key is,
Mm-hmm.
if you know where they are and you know where you can find them, put the marketing there. So yes, it could
Yeah.
be the digital retargeting, or following them through the internet, putting display ads and so forth. That's just one area where you could be, but it's really a matter of just knowing where they are. If you have a localized business, you're going to surround them by making sure that you have all the assets that you need so that they see you whenever they're in your vicinity.
I think one of the themes that I'm hearing from you, and I've seen this many, many times in companies, and especially the ones that I've built, is the more you focus on a specific market, the more money you make. And I talk to companies all the time, startups, and like, oh, well, these people could buy my service, and so could these people, and they're so different. These
Yeah,
ideal client profile, and what happens is when you target everybody, you target nobody. And
that's
so
right.
what I really like is like when you said, no, we're going to go after the Hispanic market who needs legal services, and my gosh, when you look at that narrow of a focus, there's so many people, and all your messaging, your locations, your advertising dollars go farther, and you really start to gain business. So I like the way that you approach that. Um, Now, a couple of questions. One of the fastest ways I think you've implemented growth is also through an intentional referral strategy, right? It's
Hmm.
not like what a lot of people look at as referrals as word of mouth. They just sort of wait
Hmm. Yeah,
and they keep waiting.
yeah,
And when someone gets referred, oh yeah, I can sell them when they refer me, but you just wait. I mean, come on, like right, waiting for a referral is not really an intentional strategy. So
yeah.
talk to me about the intentional referral strategy. What does that exactly mean?
Well, let's talk about first, before I get into what the strategy is, of why
Mm-hmm.
people don't do it, and it's fear.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do it because they think that they're too salesy. They're scared that somebody's going to say no. That people don't want to be pitched like that. And one of the things that I try to tell people is the best way to get a referral is just to ask for one. If you
Mm-hmm.
ask for a referral, you're more likely to get one. And if you ask 10 people for a referral, you're absolutely going to get one. If you don't ask anybody, it's going to be hard for you to get one. And so waiting back and sitting back for a referral is the death of your business. You need to be intentional about setting up the system for which you ask for referrals. So we have a three-part referral system, and one is that you're going to ask your current clients for referrals. You're going to ask in our business for lawyer referrals, so other lawyers who don't do what you do. So if you practice personal injury, you would ask criminal lawyers, family lawyers, immigration lawyers for referrals. And then the third group that you're going to ask is non-lawyer professionals. So this is your insurance agent, this is your barber. The other day I was at the barber shop. Guy comes in, I start talking to him about injury law randomly, because I don't usually do that, but it was kind of like strange. I think he was probably leading the conversation. He goes, "Yeah, I was injured in a car accident. Is that something that you could help me with?" And there you go, right there. It's a non-lawyer, referral. My barber had introduced me to the guy. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that people need to get more comfortable with is just asking for the referral. And you can go a little bit deeper into the client referrals, but in client referrals, we want to ask for a referral when they're doing a good job, when we're doing a good job. So after the intake, when they've hired you and they have hope and they're inspired by this opportunity to improve their time, ask for a referral. When something good happens in the service or representation, ask for a referral. When the person stops being a client because they finished and were successful in their case, ask for a referral. And if you ask for a referral 3 times during the case, you're very likely going to get a referral from that person. And so we went from signing about 1,500 clients were hiring us to having almost 2,500 referrals. So our entire marketing and advertising was generating about 1,500 clients. And when we implemented the intentional referral strategy, it went from 1,500 to 2,600 referrals
Just by
alone,
asking,
just by asking.
didn't cost you any money. Just asked.
Just asking the
Uh,
question. Do you know anybody who's been injured in a car accident or work accident that you think would benefit from the services that we provide?
Yeah, yeah. That's what are the common mistakes that people make when they ask for a referral? Is there a certain way to ask for a referral?
I think that the common mistake is that they don't build a relationship with the person before they ask for the referral. That's the biggest
Okay.
one. If you don't have a relationship with the person, much harder to get the referral. So what
Yeah.
I recommend is build the relationship early and build it often. Like truly be invested in people. I wrote something this morning. I was doing a little bit of deep thinking. I don't know how many business owners out there do deep thinking, but I was doing a little bit of deep thinking. And one of the things that occurred to me was, if you invest in people for the benefit of the person that you're investing in, not for your benefit, you're more likely to get ahead in life. And so when I invest in my clients, or I invest in my team, or I invest in my people, I'm not doing it so that I benefit from it. I know I'm going to benefit from it long term, but I'm not doing it for my benefit. I'm doing it for their benefit. I truly want them to succeed. I truly want them to accomplish their goals. I truly want them to win their case. And when you're doing it like that and you build that kind of relationship, the referrals will be free flowing. It'll be a natural
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, and to people listening to this, because a lot of non-law firms are listening to this as well, about how they could scale their agency, scale their business, and maybe they target other businesses. But the techniques you're applying, you're recommending apply to other businesses too. Like if somebody was, I don't know, a marketing agency or an executive coach or an IT firm, and they're targeting other businesses, just that simple. Disciplined approach to asking for the referrals during multiple times during the engagement, I think is a really good one. I actually had a client or a friend of mine who was an IT firm, and what he would do is he would ask for the referral before he even got the person as a client. And the way he would approach it is he'd say, "Look, we're pretty confident that we're going to do a fantastic job for you. One of the metrics for our success is that you would be willing to that you would be unbelievably happy. If that's the case, after we've engaged with you, would you be open to writing referral or a testimonial?" And
Mhm.
this is before they actually got the contract. And it's kind of an interesting psychological play here because he's trying to plant the seed in the person's mind that you want to pick us. We're so confident that we're going to do a fantastic job for you. Have you ever encountered something like that, or have you done anything like that?
Yeah, I've never asked for the referral before they became a client,
Mm,
but I could see how that works because you're basically planting the seed, and I'm a big fan of planting the seed before
mhm.
you actually ask. So you're essentially putting that little seed in their mind that, hey, I'm going to be asking for a referral. But I think anytime that you can prime the system, prime the person to have like you're setting up the expectation that they're going to refer someone to you. I think it's a great idea, and really, there's no the only wrong way to ask for a referral is to ask out of desperation, ask out of need, and ask without a relationship. If you've done it those three ways, you're doing it the wrong way. Otherwise, build a relationship, ask out of abundance, like, hey, I know there's a lot of people out there. I'd love to work with them. And you're gonna get referrals.
Would you recommend that you always ask for a referral in person while you're talking to somebody on the phone, or do you think that maybe there's an automated way to do it? If somebody's got quite a few clients, reaching out to everybody might be difficult. I mean, like when you mentioned 1,500 clients and you got 2,500 referrals, I take it that you were talking to these clients based on the work that your company does. But sometimes people don't actually have to talk to their clients all the time. Should they send an email? Is that a good idea to ask for a referral? What are some other ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question because I think it's the question is it comes down to the strategy of asking for referrals at scale. That's really what we're trying to figure
Right.
out. How do we do it at scale? And I think that it's hiring great people who are taught the techniques of asking for referrals. So, like in our business with 200 employees, we're getting a lot of referrals because all those employees are building relationships with the clients, not me. So I don't have to build the relationship with the clients. They build the relationships. They ask for the referrals. They get the referrals. So that's step number one. But automating the priming system, which planting the seed is a great idea. So I send regular emails where I will say, hey, if you know anybody who would benefit from our service, we'd love to work with them. Just respond, um, to this email, and you'd be
Okay,
surprised
so
how many times they share it. Yep.
that's really good. So you just like a regular simple email. It doesn't hurt to make an extra touch point with your clients, and that's a great way to just drum up some additional business. What are other ways? Like, do you put reward systems in place? Do you reward someone for giving you a referral, or is it just out of their goodwill?
In law firms, you can't give anybody anything for a referral, so
Hmm.
that becomes a little bit more
Hmm.
challenging. I wish
Yeah.
you could. Now, there's some states that are allowing some sort of like gift. You can give like $200, but in
Hmm.
in in Georgia, you can't give them anything. They have to do it out of the goodness of their heart.
Hmm.
So it becomes really
Yeah.
challenging. Now, for eight figure firm consulting, we do pay a like a fee, like a commission fee for them referring someone who does hire us. So there is a financial incentive, and we've done all kinds of. I mean, we've bought super expensive Yeti coolers, we cut go knives, we've sent cash gifts,
Mm.
just anything we can to entice people to send a referral. We've taken a month off their service. We've taken a couple $1,000s off their fee. So whatever we
Hmm.
can do. But yeah, giving an incentive is always the easier way to get those referrals for sure.
Do you get more referrals when you offer an incentive, or do you feel like it's kind of about the same?
I think it's the it's about the same, but the intensity of the referrals when I make the offer. So like a couple of months ago, maybe it was 6 months ago at this point, but I made an offer and I said, any of you who refer someone to me in the next 30 days, I'm going to give you $5,000 cash. Like I'm sending you a check for $5,000. And I
Mm-hmm.
got like 11 or 12 referrals. Like the intensity of referrals was a lot at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So doing a big offering like that is a powerful way to do it. But generally speaking, that dies off, the promotion ends, and then you have to wait to the next promotion to actually get a referral. In the meantime, people will refer some people.
Okay. Is there a trade-off between the number of referrals you get just by asking and actually the quality of the referrals? Is there something you could do to bump up the quality?
I mean, I have always found that the referrals tend to be good quality, especially if they're coming from clients, because
Mm.
clients tend to refer people that are like them. They tend to refer people that are similar to them, socioeconomically, demographically. So, generally speaking, if I'm targeting a specific group and they refer someone, it's going to be someone from that same group, and so that's the benefit of the referral. So, and also the conversion rate of referrals is much higher, where you can convert 10, 15, 20% of a cold referral, or excuse me, of a cold client, potential new client. The referrals like 80, 90% are going to convert.
Hmm. Let's swing back to the 999 principles that you have. What are one or two key points that people should know about the plan to be able to grow your business beyond $2-3 million?
So the plan is broken down into three primary buckets. The first one is called the foundational bucket. The second one is called the intentional bucket. And then the third one's called the transformational bucket. In the foundational bucket, it's all about planning. And so we talk about vision, mission, values, service standards. And it's how do I create the plan to take my business to the next level, like from a visionary standpoint, like what is it that I want to achieve, like that's the first bucket, is like the foundation. A lot of times we start a business and we don't even think about what's the end goal. We're just like, oh, I'm going to start a restaurant, and yeah, this is the serve Mexican food. Well, what's
Hmm.
the end goal? Is it to be the best Mexican restaurant? Is it to have 5 locations? Is it to be a multi-state? Is it to be turn it into a franchise? Is it to have the best quality food? Is it to have the best customer service? Like, what is the vision of this restaurant? And we don't take the time to do that, because we're so focused on making money instead of on actually fulfilling some sort of purpose in our lives. So in the foundational stage, I think the planning and really understanding what it is that you want to accomplish is super critical. In the intentional stage, what we're talking about is, what are the actions that I'm going to take to achieve the results that I want to have? What kind of brand messaging am I going to have? What type of marketing plan will I deploy? How much am I going to invest in the business and marketing? How much am I going to invest in referral relationships? Like, that's the intentional stage. And then in the transformational stage, it's, what systems do I need to put in place so that this business runs without me, so that I'm no longer self-employed, so that I no longer am basically an employee of my own business. What are the systems that I need to have in place so that it runs without me? And who are the leaders that I need to hire so that they continue to operate at a high level? So those are the three primary things that you need to think about once you get to about $3 million, is what is it that I'm trying to create? How am I going to do it? What are the actions I'm going to take? And then who do I need? And what are the systems I need to make this a reality?
What about key performance indicators? Are there specific measurements that you take along the way just to make sure that, it's like a little pulse check to make sure that you're on track?
Yeah, so I am I'm sure if anybody from Eight Figure Firm, any of my members, they may be laughing when that question came through, because I am notoriously anti KPIs, key performance statement.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
All
and
right.
the reason is because we die on the altar of KPIs so that we can tell ourselves that we shouldn't grow so fast, or we shouldn't take certain actions. And what I tell people is, KPIs are good once your business is predictable. So our goal with Eight Figure Firm is to create a predictable business. Once it's predictable, then we can measure the key performance indicators that will tell us something. Like, when you have erratic growth, meaning you don't have any predictability in your lead generation, you don't have predictability in your sales, you don't have predictability in your production, you don't have predictability in your people, you don't have predictability in your profit. How could you know whether something's a key performance indicator? There's no predictability. And so
Mm,
why don't we develop a predictable lead gen? predictable sales process. Why don't we develop the predictable first, then we measure what led to that? And I think that that's a different way to look at KPIs. I see this all the time. A lot of consultants, and by the way, this is not a knock on those consultants. It's just my philosophy is different. But a lot of consultants spend a lot of time saying, "What is the KPI, for Sally in this position?" Well, the KPI for Sally in this position is irrelevant to the business we're trying to build. The KPI for Sally in the position of a $2 million firm means nothing to a $10 million firm where you're going to need 20 Sallys. And what is the KPI of a $10 million firm where you need 20 Sallys and you have 100 cases per person versus Sally today who only has 60 cases? So I think that I want to get you to a level of more predictability. And once we get there, we can start saying, okay, to continue the predictability that we've now developed, this is what we need to see from every individual position. And now we can scale the position. So we know that this particular, let's say, legal assistant can handle 100 cases because we have a predictable process already. So now every time we hire somebody, we're going to hire them to handle 100 cases. And so that I don't really measure KPIs along the way. When I built 8-figure firm, it's now just 3 years old. We'll do 5 million in revenue in our third year. We have no KPIs. Literally no KPIs. I didn't have enough predictability in year 1, 2, and 3 to know what was the key performance indicator for the success. As we've gotten out to 5 million in revenue, I'm like, okay, so now I know I need to put this amount of marketing to get this amount of clients. Okay, that's the KPI. Now I know
Right.
because I have predictability. So that's
Yeah.
the different perspective I have on that.
Yeah, I would imagine that once you're a little bit bigger, you got to know, because I mean, at some point, if you're providing any kind of services, you have a ballpark close rate. Like if you talk to this many people, roughly you're going to close, I don't know, 20, 30, 50% if you're a great
Absolutely.
salesperson. So that's supposedly one KPI. But sometimes you could also measure other things like if you're not necessarily a service business, but like how long the contracts are, what your average contract value is, cost to acquire a customer, those types of things to help you understand your marketing metrics better. And those are some of the things that we talk about in some other podcasts. But what I'd like to really focus on is some of the other areas of that transformational process that you described, the last third of your 999 plan. So what kinds of questions should people be asking themselves as they build their businesses to help get them transformed to that level? What kinds of other activities should they be focusing on?
Yeah, one of the things that I always ask is, can this be documented in a predictable process? And should it be documented in a predictable process? I think a lot of times we rely on, we say we need to systematize, we need to write all this down, but it's not something that occurs very often. So it's basically pointless to document something that doesn't occur very often. You don't document the exceptions, right? You want to document the things that happen routinely. And so when I look at kind of transforming the business and making it what it needs to be so that it runs on its own, the question I'm asking is, do we need a process for our lead generation so that if a new person came in, they would know how we generate leads? Do we need a process for our sales? Like, what are the scripts that we need? Do we need a process for our production? How do we guide the person from the beginning of the representation to the end of the representation, or from the beginning of the service to the end of the service? And I think that happens once you have created that second level of intention and you have predictability. Going back to what you were saying about metrics and so forth, I do agree. We need to measure, our conversion rate. But when the leads are erratic, meaning you get 5 leads in January, you don't get anything in February, you get 10 leads in March, you get 3 leads in April, it's not predictable enough to really use that metric for anything. Like it's just touch and go. Maybe the 5 that you got in January were all from Google pay-per-click, and the 10 from March were all referrals. Well, yeah, of course your conversion rate's better in March because you got referrals versus, the cold leads. Whereas if every single month you knew your marketing was delivering 10 leads, 10 leads, 10 leads, 10 leads, now we can say, what should a person be performing at who is getting 10 leads every single month in a specific type of way? And then that makes it much more useful at that point, because then you can actually make a decision from that KPI and that metric. And so the transformation stage is all about identifying, where are we on the predictable scale. If we're predictable in lead generation, let's transform it into a system. If we're predictable on the sales, let's transform that into a system. So the transformation happens one piece at a time.
So I think a lot of people get stuck in that predictability part of it. In the consulting world, there's this phrase, feast or famine, because you're the individual person delivering all
Hmm.
the services, and then when you're done with the project, during the project, you don't have time to go recruit business, and so then you get to this feast or famine stage. What are some of the top ways that you found uh, to help people get more predictability in the lead flow?
Yeah, so I have this business funnel where I talk about that leads are a factor of awareness. So the more people are aware of you, the more leads you're going to get. And so when you don't have predictable leads, that doesn't mean they're going to be good leads, because that's the next level, which is getting qualified good leads. But level
Mm-hmm.
one is just to get leads. It's to get people to know about you. That goes back to earlier in the conversation where I said understand who your target audience is, and then be where they are. If you don't have predictable leads, it's because you don't have predictable awareness. And you need to ask yourself, what intentional actions are you taking to create predictable awareness? So the story that I always give is when we first launched Eight Figure Firm, I just wanted people to know about Eight Figure Firm. So we went out, we took $3,000 or $4,000, not even a lot, $3,000 or $4,000 every month, because at the time I had like 5 or 6 clients, and we took $3,000 or $4,000 and we just put it on Facebook and Instagram advertising. There was no specificity. It just said Eight Figure Firm Consulting will grow your business to 10 million. We were
Mm-hmm.
getting every type of business on the planet. We were getting leads. We were creating awareness. We had trucking companies calling us. We had tax accountants calling us. We had service providers. I mean, anything. We had plumbers calling us. Like, we were just creating awareness. We took that information, because that's step one, is create awareness. And then step two is to generate leads. Well, now we're at step two, generating leads. Now we need qualified leads. And so we took that information. We said, who's actually responding to it? Why are they responding to it? What are the keywords that lawyers need to listen to? And we refined that message. So we went from creating awareness to generating leads to then refining the message to create qualified leads. So if you're having problems generating leads, you don't have enough awareness in the marketplace. And we know this because the more people know you, the more people will hire you. And so if
Mm-hmm.
people aren't aware of you, they're not going to hire you. And then if you're getting a lot of leads but they're not qualified, that's a messaging issue that you need to refine. And now it's a matter of refining the message. So as we refine the message, it got better. So what ended up happening was we ended up getting lawyer leads, but the lawyer leads were not the type that we wanted. We wanted lawyers who were generating $1 million in revenue or more. And most of the lawyers that were contacting us were like 250,000, 350,000. That wasn't our
Mm-hmm.
ideal client. So we had to refine it one more time. And now the majority of people who call us are 1, 2, 3, 4, $5 million in revenue. And it was all through
Mm-hmm.
that refinement process. But it
Mm-hmm.
starts with creating awareness.
Okay, so I love the process that you described because it was very methodical. You started with a little bit of a broader base, trimmed it down, trimmed it down, trimmed it, because a lot of people think, okay, well, I tried advertising, it didn't work for me. Well, it's because you might have like missed the bullseye when you
Mm-hmm.
actually tried it, and you just got to keep refining it. So keep sticking to it, I think, is pretty critical. Um, so that's a really good way to develop that predictability. Um, Louise, I want to move into a speed round if you're ready for that. I've got a whole
Okay.
series of quick questions to ask you. So, why did you start your own business? Why did you start Eight Figure Firm Consulting?
Eight Figure Firm for me was it's my purpose. I felt like I had a vision for myself to lead a life of significance, and I felt like I can make the biggest impact from a significant standpoint just leading other law firms. Our current law firm, yes, handles 5,000 cases a year, and we help 5,000 people. But because of Eight Figure Firm and now helping 120 law firms, we help 50,000 people nationwide. So to me, it was a way to create a bigger ripple effect in my life.
Mm-hmm. What are the most common mistakes that you see your clients make?
They think that things can get done faster than they really can. They don't have the patience for slow, methodical growth, and they get very, very frustrated with the responsibility of really building a big business.
Okay, let me just move on to the next question. I was about to ask you a follow up, but I think that's actually a nice, concise answer. What's the book that most impacted your life?
Oh man, I have two, but I really, from a business standpoint or personally.
Well, both actually, because I
Okay.
find that there's a lot of times people confuse work life and personal life, and to me,
Mhm.
and through all my coaching experiences, it's really the same. What affects one affects the other, and vice versa. There's
Absolutely.
life. There's not like separate lives. So talk to me. Like more than one book is fine. What did
Okay.
you find?
I'm going to give
Yeah,
you two books. The book
yeah.
that really transformed me personally, like, and then it did lead into business, was the book called Four Agreements. And the reason is because of
Yes.
agreement number one. And in fact, I've read this book 10 times and always stop after agreement number one. And it was not to take anything personally. I think many times we become victims and we take things personally, and that is just detrimental to us growing as an individual. So taking that in, believing that, receiving that, and saying the way the person acted is not me, that's on them. They got something going
Hmm.
on. So that was
Hmm.
one. But from a business standpoint, Cy Wakeman has a book called No Ego, and she talks about reality-based leadership and how to create a culture of change. To me, it's one of the most instructive books on building a culture, on building an organization, and leading your people through change that I've ever read. And in fact, we made it a recommended and required reading for our firm at one point because it was, and we even invited them in to come do an entire session. That's how much we believed in that book.
Hmm. You know, it's interesting that you say you made it required reading for your firm, because I used to do that in my company also. And the required reading that I had everybody look at was a book by Kenneth Blanchard. He wrote The 1 Minute Manager, but that's not the book I had everybody read. Had them read Raving Fans,
Ah,
which talked about delivering amazing customer service, which is across the board. And I think when you do something like that, you
mhm,
actually get those referrals. Yeah,
yeah.
I like that you've got a required reading for your whole staff. That's a great thing. Hey, so what's the best counterintuitive advice that you can share?
The best counterintuitive advice that I can share would probably be that sometimes getting out of, and this is a business advice, sometimes getting out of a cash crunch is spending more money. And
Yeah.
because sometimes your cash crunch is a result of not having enough clients. Sometimes your cash crunch is a result of not having a good business product. And so one of the ways to get more clients is to spend money. One of the ways to develop a better product is to spend money. And so most of the time people just, they clinch their wallets and they're like, I can't spend another dime. I need to save,
Mhm.
save, save. And usually that's not the answer.
You're absolutely right about that. I think, there's only so much you can save, but the
Mm,
potential to grow is actually unlimited.
yep.
And I think that's where a lot of times people get stuck, is especially if there's a recession looming, or,
Mm,
other businesses are struggling to, okay, let's cut back. Where can we cut back? Let's cut this expense, that expense. And if you read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he actually
mm,
says the companies that actually did well over time are the ones that actually invested in marketing during recessions. So they poured money, because the moment you come out of that recession, they were most well positioned, and their growth just like skyrocketed. So
that's
yes,
right.
very good piece of counterintuitive advice.
Mm.
Spend more even when you're in a cash crunch. Hey, so all right, sometimes we get folks that are starting out in their careers. What's your best advice for a 25-year-old for career happiness?
So for career happiness, so this is a non-business person, right? They're just a.
It could be anybody. It could be somebody starting a business, or it could be
Mhm,
somebody in their career. But I think one of the things that I the reason I phrase it this way is because career happiness, I think, is really important. And
mhm.
so, yeah. So what would be your advice for a
This is
young
almost like
person?
a this is another piece of counterintuitive advice
Yeah.
because I've seen it work, and that is um, if you want to be the most happy, don't jump from relationship to relationship, and by that I mean business to business to business. Be willing to go through several seasons, and I'm not talking about if you're working in a toxic workplace, but if you
Hmm.
don't know where you want to be in life and you don't know what you want to do in life, I think the wisdom of today is like, well, just keep looking for another place, and you're gonna land on it. And I actually tell young people, go out, go to a company, work there 3 or 4 years, really learn what it's like to work through the seasons of happiness and sadness and joy and difficulty, and the lessons you will learn from that when you find the thing that you love will be invaluable. I worked at my first company for 15 years. Didn't love every single minute. In fact, sometimes I was very unhappy, but everything I learned there is what's made me a multimillionaire today.
Yeah, yeah. Keep at it. I see people go from, like you said, one thing to another thing. It was crypto, then it was NFTs, and now it's like whatever the latest thing is, and they're hopping on the trend, and as a result, they're always behind the trend, and they're never happy because they're
Mhm.
just going from, they can't focus. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's important to stick it through. What about for someone who's a little bit older? What's your best advice for a 45-year-old starting their first business right now?
Um, if you're starting your first business, I think that you want to make sure that you have thought about how to generate clients fast before you go out and launch your business. Really plan that out. it's going to give you the greatest opportunity for success in the short term. Because if you're 45, you probably don't have the luxury of waiting around 10 years to turn a profit, unless you have some amazing idea that you can wait that long. But um, go out there. Hopefully, you know what you want to do, your purpose in life, and what you're going to be doing with your business. But make sure that first 90 days of launching your business is a big bang. And I got this advice actually from a friend of mine who launched a restaurant, and he told me that restaurants fail because they don't have enough buzz at the beginning of the restaurant. And so what he did when he launched his restaurant is for the first 3 months, he spent $12,000 in free food giveaway.
Hmm.
12,000 per month. So 36, he gave away free food for the first 3 months so that more people could taste it. It created a buzz in the community, and the many years later, it's a huge success.
Wow, that's fantastic. What's the worst advice you ever got?
Um, oof, the worst advice I ever got. I haven't, the way that I look at advice is that's like the supermarket approach. It's that sometimes sometimes I see it and I take it and I use it. And sometimes I see it and I realize that I don't want that advice. And so I still
Hmm.
learn from it. But I
Yeah.
think one of the things that a lot of people hear that is really bad advice is that becoming a millionaire and building a big business should be easy. A lot of times, because I work with a lot of companies and they're like, why is this so hard? And why is this so difficult? And why am I struggling so much? And why am I so this and anxious and stressed? And it's like, whoever told you this was supposed to be easy? Like,
Hmm.
who's out there saying that it's supposed to, and you
Yeah.
see a lot of these consultants advertise how to build your business and work 3 hours a week and have all the fulfillment and joy in the world. And it's like
Oh,
they're preaching easiness, and building a business is not easy. So I think
yeah.
that's a bad advice.
There's that ad campaign from Staples where you got the easy button and everything just sort of happens for you. That
Yeah.
is so unrooted in reality.
Yes.
I mean, if you want something big, you got to work for it, and there's no shortcuts. Um, so very good, Louise. How can people reach you?
So if they want to reach me, luisscottjr.com, LuisScottJR.com. And you can find all my links, social media, my books, and also Eight Figure Firm Consulting as well.
Love the conversation, Louise. You've imparted quite a bit of advice, and I think a lot of people can take this to heart to help grow their company past the million, $2 million, $3 million mark. Thank you very much for
Thanks for
joining
having me.
us.